Hi, fourth grade. So we're going to start our book today. It's called Larger Than Life Flora. Let's go. So what's going to happen is we're going to take some breaks in between our chapters, and I might pause and ask a question, but I'm going to read the book, and I want you just to interact with it. Don't forget to go ahead and open up your class notebook in Teams, and make sure that you're in your name under Lit Study, and I want you to create a new page for chapters 1 and 2. That's what we're going to cover today. You ready to get started? Chapter 1 is called Character. This isn't about me. This story, I mean. So already you got a reason to hang it up. At least that's what Miss Smith says, our English teacher. She teaches 4th grade in Paris, Missouri. But I think she'd about 100 million times rather be in Paris, France, writing her own stories, instead of teaching us how to write stories. So anyways, she says you gotta start with a character when you start your story. And since I'm the first character you hear from in the story, that should mean it's about me. Lainey Grafton, age 10, or nearly so, small for her age, but tough as a horseshoe, thanks to her 3 big brothers and 1 bathroom. Stringy brownish hair and brown eyes. Not much to look at, but couldn't make a living scaring crows either. But it's not about me. Because once you get you a character for your story, Mrs. Smith says you give the character a problem. And the whole rest of the story is about that problem getting bigger and bigger, and the character getting to be a better and better person, and that the character solves the problem. And that's it, the end. Only it's not about me. It's not me that's got the problem, and I'm not a better person than I was 3 months ago when all of this stuff happened. Just ask my dad, or any of my 3 stupid brothers, if you don't believe me. So like I said, this story's not about me. And Mrs. Smith, if you're out there reading this, well, I'm just sorry about that. But that's the way it is. Sometimes stories don't work out like they're supposed to. Chapter 2 is called The Beginning. I want to pause for a second and just remind you that sometimes authors will use words and storylines in their books that maybe aren't appropriate for school. There's nothing majorly inappropriate in our book this time, but I want to make sure that if there's words we wouldn't normally use, that we'll just be mature about it and we're going to move on. Okay? Here we go. The first thing that happened was that everybody in the whole 4th grade class, and that includes Mrs. Smith, stopped talking. She was right in the middle of telling us about William Shakespeare, who invented plays in England. Plus, she was telling us about a play our whole school was going to put on, and how some of us could be in it, and others of us would be really important, but not on stage, and that shouldn't make us feel bad. And we were all looking at Mrs. Smith, because she gets real mad at us when we don't. I was watching the way that her eyes changed size when she finished each sentence, getting bigger, and like periods stretching into exclamation points. Are her eyes really exclamation points? Can you picture that with like exclamation points on her eyes? Or what does that even mean? So anyways, that was the first thing. I heard quiet. The second thing was that the air changed. Now this is where Mrs. Smith and Amanda Catron and Tommy Otto would argue with me. But this is my story, and I say that the air in our classroom changed. It was hot. Lemon drop sweating hot. So as even Maddie Simpson looked like she tiptoed through the water sprinkler. And I'm not saying that the air turned to ice or nothing, but I stopped sweating. So there you have it. There must have been footsteps because nobody, especially a kid that looked like this one, as big as a sofa, could just sneak into the room without them. But I didn't hear any footsteps. And my daddy says I can hear a cat whisper. When he's been drinking, he says the cats in China can hear me, which is his way of saying shut up. And he has other ways of saying shut up, but you can't write them in stories. Mrs. Smith would call this part a digression. So I'm thinking I can get away with it because it's all inside these parentheses. Before I saw who had come into our room and changed the air, I saw Joey Gilbert see her. Joey looked like he'd spotted a ghost. Or maybe his mother, coming to pick him up from the principal's after getting kicked out of school for a week for punching a littler kid. Then I saw Marissa see her. Marissa is so shy you almost never see her face, but at that minute, her face was on full view, and it was nearly all eyes and mouth dropped open. Then I saw her. I've seen her so much since that first time that it's honest to Pete hard to say what I thought she looked like. And this is something I never thought about as a writer of real things you haven't made up. It's not easy to write the truth, even when that's all you set out to do. I guess I remember thinking that this was the biggest girl I'd ever seen. Right away, I wondered if she was stuck in the doorway because she was still standing there, filling the whole space, it seemed to me, with no light from the hallway showing behind her. I figured she was about the most mountain-like human being I had ever seen, or maybe hill-like, with ridges and rolling fields, and maybe I thought that because she was wearing a green dress, so it looked even more like hills, how the green swelled around her middle and her arms. And I'm sure about the green dress because it's what she always wore to school. Whoa, Eric Rodabaugh was the first one to start up talking, of course, and Wayne wasn't far behind. Man, is a circus in town? Wayne whispered. Only his whisper was 100 times louder than a normal person's regular voice. I risked looking at the stranger's face to see how she took it. But her round cheeks didn't even twitch, and those pale blue eyes stayed twinkling, like they were smiling even though her mouth wasn't. So I figured she hadn't heard Eric and Wayne, because when they call me freak girl or toughie, and I guarantee you they don't mean it in a good way, or hillbilly, there's no way I can pretend that I didn't hear them. Can I help you? Mrs. Smith asked, clearing her throat like being hoarse was why she didn't say anything before Eric and Wayne got to it. I'm Laura. The girl's mouth joined her eyes in the smile. She glanced around the room like she was giving each of us a little piece of her smile. I looked down at my fingernails when I could tell that smile was getting to my row. Dirt was packed under my nails that weren't bit down to the finger, so I tried to pick the dirt out. I don't go around dirty, really I don't, but nails and ears, those are parts you forget about, at least I do. There's this picture of my mama in the bottom of my daddy's dresser, and it doesn't take but one look at that picture to know my mama never, ever forgot about dirt under her fingernails. I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith said. Laura? Laura, the girl said, not like she was mad or anything. Laura. Lara. I see, but you could tell the teacher didn't see. Were you looking for someone? Lara's smile got big enough to show her tiny white teeth. One of the front ones was missing, and that made her look stranger than fiction. She stayed there, standing in the exact center of the room. Sometimes Mrs. Smith makes us do these exercises on describing characters when we write our stories in class. Characterization, she calls it. She passes out papers that look like this. Blank is the kind of person who blank. Blank is the kind of person who blank. And so on. Then we fill in the blanks for all the characters in our stories. Well, my mind was filling in all the blanks like this. Laura is the kind of person who changes the air in a classroom. Laura is the kind of person who would be the only one left in Kansas if a tornado blew everybody else to Oz. Mrs. Smith wouldn't like this one, though, because it's too long. Laura is the kind of person nobody ever sees, even though she's the biggest thing in the room. Laura is the kind of person who makes you feel almost normal. Laura is the kind of person you never forget. So, now that we've finished our first two chapters, I need to make sure that we know who this book is about. We've met a lot of characters so far. So you have your notebooks open in our teams, and I want you to tell me who the characters are. So I want you to make a list. And you're also going to do that same characterization task that Lainey did. So I want you to fill in the blanks. And I want you to do Lainey is the kind of person who, and I want you to describe her in your own words. Remember, Lainey's the one that tells the story. You're also going to do it with Laura. So I want you to write, Laura is the kind of person who, and tell me about her. What do you think you could describe her as? And finally, I want you to do that for yourself. Make a connection to your own life. And I want you to put in your name. So Mrs. Harris is the kind of person who, and I want you to fill in the blank with whatever it is that you think about yourself. So for my example, it would be Mrs. Harris is the kind of person who really loves her students. It describes me in a way that I think is appropriate. So you can tell me what you think you're the kind of person, or describe yourself as a person. So tomorrow we're going to look at chapter 3. Later today, after you've seen this video and you've answered the questions, we're going to talk about these questions and we're going to think a little bit more about them. So I hope that you're ready. Thank you for watching it, and I will see you guys later.